I hired my neighbor to babysit while I worked nights. One day, my daughter came home with a bruise. The babysitter said she fell. My daughter whispered, "She made me eat soap." When I questioned her, she grinned, "Discipline makes character." I reported her. Days later, my daughter went missing. Her backpack was found on the. I'm a single mom. I live in a small town just south of Lexington, Kentucky. People around here are mostly friendly. We wave to each other, hold the door open, smile in grocery store lines. But now, every time I see a smile from a stranger, I feel sick. Because a smile is how this all started. My name is Brooke. I'm 32. I work nights at a warehouse over in Nicholasville. It's long shifts, lifting boxes, loading trucks, lots of sweating, not a lot of breaks. But it pays okay, and it's the only steady job I could get that covered rent and daycare. My daughter, Ellie, is 7. She's my whole life. When my usual sitter moved back to West Virginia to take care of her sick mom, I panicked. I don't have family nearby. And night sitters aren't easy to find. Daycare doesn't run past 6, and I clock in at 7:30 p.m. sharp. I was running out of options fast. Then Carol, my next-door neighbor, stepped in. She's this older woman, maybe mid-50s. Kept her hair tied back tight, wore pastel sweaters no matter the season, and always had this weird calm tone in her voice. We didn't talk much before. But she knocked on my door one morning with banana bread and offered to watch Ellie while I worked. She said, "I used to be a teacher. I miss kids. I can help." I was desperate. And she lived 20 feet from my front door. It seemed safe. I didn't ask too many questions. That was my first mistake. The first couple of weeks seemed fine. Ellie didn't complain much. She was a quiet kid to begin with. When I'd get home in the mornings, she'd be asleep in her bed, Carol gone, the house clean. It looked like it was working. Then one morning I noticed a dark purple bruise on Ellie's upper arm. I asked her, "What happened, sweetie?" She looked down. I tripped on the carpet. Carol, who was still in the kitchen packing up her purse, chimed in, "She's clumsy. Kids bump into everything." It didn't sit right with me. But I didn't want to overreact. Later that day, while brushing Ellie's hair before school, she leaned in and whispered, "She made me eat soap." I stopped brushing. "What do you mean?" I didn't say please. She said kids who forget manners eat soap. I couldn't breathe. I asked, "Did she hurt you?" Ellie looked scared. She grabbed my arm. She said soap washes out sin. I was shaking. That night when Carol came over, I opened the door, stepped outside, and told her not to come back. She didn't look surprised. She just smiled like she was the one in charge. She said, "Discipline makes character. You'll thank me someday." I slammed the door in her face. That night, I reported her. I called CPS. I told them about the soap. The bruise. I told the police. They said they'd investigate. But I could tell I wasn't their priority. Carol didn't seem scared. She stayed in her house, acted like nothing happened. 3 days later, Ellie didn't come home from school. I got a call from the front office around 2 p.m. They said someone claiming to be Ellie's aunt signed her out early. I don't have a sister. I called the police again. They pulled the school security footage. I watched the grainy video of Carol, her hair in a tight bun, wearing a long gray coat, leading Ellie out of the building. Ellie looked calm. Maybe confused. But she followed her. The car they got into wasn't Carol's. It was an older model SUV. Plates were blurry. 2 days later, her pink backpack was found on the steps of an old church on the edge of town. It had burned down years ago and just sat there now, covered in soot and broken wood. The bottom of the backpack was charred. Inside was her drawing book. The last page had a picture. A tall woman with white hair. Behind her, a house on fire. In the drawing, the flames were red crayon streaks scribbled across the whole page. The woman's eyes were black circles. I started screaming. The cops said they were doing everything they could. But I could see it in their faces. They didn't know where to start. Carol wasn't at her house anymore. The car was gone. She vanished. I tried to give them more. I looked her up myself. I found her real name, Martha Deacon. She changed it after her husband died in a house fire back in Ohio 10 years ago. No charges were filed. But that wasn't the only thing. She was let go from 3 churches in 2 different states. Records showed disciplinary issues and boundary concerns with minors. But no criminal charges ever stuck. She kept moving, changing her name, blending into small towns. The police added it to their report. That wasn't good enough for me. I started going through her trash, checking her mailbox, talking to people she spoke with. I found a P.O. box in Danville. A grocery clerk remembered her mailing things there. I followed the trail. One night, while driving back from Danville, I noticed a car behind me that had been tailing me for a few miles. I pulled into a gas station. The car kept going. Or so I thought. When I got home, there was an envelope taped to my front door. Inside was a photo. It was Ellie, sitting on the floor of a dark room. Her face was pale. Her eyes looked tired. She had a blanket over her shoulders. Behind her, there was a cross on the wall. Burned wood. Same as the church. On the back of the photo were the words, "She's learning to obey." I fell apart. This wasn't just a kidnapping. This woman believed in something twisted. She thought she was saving Ellie from me. That I was raising her wrong. That she needed discipline. And I knew then. I couldn't wait for the police. I had to find Carol myself. I started living out of my car. I left work. I didn't tell anyone. I stopped answering calls from people who said things like "just stay strong" or "the police are doing everything they can." They weren't. I had to do this myself. I drove to Danville and parked across from the P.O. box place. I sat there for 2 nights in a row, eating gas station sandwiches and staring at every single car that pulled into that lot. I was waiting for a ghost. On the 3rd night, just after 9 p.m., a silver van pulled in. Older model, dirty, no plates in the front. I saw her. Carol. Martha. Whatever her name really was. She wore a hood over her head, but I knew her walk. She went inside with a key, came out with a stack of mail, and drove off. I followed. She didn't notice me. I kept 2 cars back. I didn't even breathe. She drove west, out toward the hills, past Stanford, into the country. Trees thick on both sides. Nothing but woods and long, winding roads. After about 40 minutes, she pulled into a long gravel driveway almost hidden behind a fallen tree. I waited until the red tail lights disappeared behind the trees. Then I followed on foot. The driveway led to an old cabin. Wood rot on the porch, chimney leaning, one of the windows boarded up. A dim light flickered inside. I crept closer. I kept low. I went around back and saw something that made my chest cave in. Ellie's shoe. Pink, Velcro strap, lying near a stack of chopped firewood. I took a photo of it. I texted it to the detective who'd been handling the case, along with the coordinates. He didn't reply. Inside, I heard movement. A voice. It was Carol's. Calm, sing-songy. Like a lullaby, but off. I moved toward a cracked window. I saw Ellie. She was sitting on the floor, arms wrapped around her knees. Her face was pale, but I could see her lips moving. I think she was whispering something to herself. Carol stood over her with a Bible in her hand. She said, "God punishes the proud, Ellie. Pride is a sin. Your mother filled your head with it. But don't worry, we'll wash it out. I saw a wooden bowl filled with water. Next to it, a bar of soap. Something in me snapped. I didn't think. I grabbed the rusted shovel leaning against the cabin wall and smashed the back window in. The sound of glass shattered the silence like a gunshot. Carol screamed. I climbed in. Ellie saw me and cried out, "Mom." Carol lunged. I don't know how, but I shoved her hard into the wall. She hit her head on the corner of a shelf and dropped. Not unconscious, but stunned. I scooped Ellie up and ran. We bolted into the woods. She was crying, sobbing into my neck. I kept running. I got back to my car, peeled out, didn't stop until we hit a gas station with a lit-up parking lot. I locked the doors, called the police. This time they moved. They raided the cabin. Carol was gone. Again. She'd taken off after we left. Packed what she could and vanished before the cops got there. But they found proof. A cot. Ropes. A notebook full of lessons. Her handwriting, her rules. Pages and pages of her twisted beliefs. She believed she was cleansing kids. Saving them from sin. One at a time. But here's the thing, the photo she left me? The envelope on my door? It was mailed from another town. But not Danville. From Murfreesboro, Tennessee. That was 2 days before Ellie went missing. That meant she planned it. It wasn't a reaction to the report. She was already going to take her. Ellie's been sleeping in my bed since I got her back. She wakes up screaming. She won't talk about what happened during those days. I'm scared to push. But I'm not done. Because Carol is still out there. And I've started finding more names. The police tried to tell me to move on. You have your daughter back, one of them said, like that was the end of it. No. It wasn't. Carol. Or Martha, or whatever her name was, planned this. She left clues. Mocked me. She'd done this before. And if she wasn't stopped, she was going to do it again. I started digging. I quit my job. I cashed out what little savings I had and sold my TV, old jewelry, anything I didn't need. I bought a cheap laptop and started going through everything I could find, old forums, archived news, public records. I didn't care if it took me all night. That's when I found something. 10 years ago in Ohio, there was a case. A small town called Zanesville. A girl named Rachel went missing for 3 days. She was found wandering near a church that had recently been shut down for fire damage. No arrests were made. The child was too scared to talk. CPS never figured out who did it. I looked up the photos of people in the area at the time. One picture showed a group of women at a church picnic. There was a woman in the back, barely visible. White hair pulled tight, eyes locked on the kids playing nearby. Carol. Another case, 5 years ago. Linton, Indiana. A boy named Micah disappeared for a weekend. Same thing, he was found with bruises, dazed, talking about being scrubbed clean. No charges. Family moved states shortly after. I pulled up property records in the areas. Each time, a property near the church had been rented to a woman under a fake name, Susan Greer. Ann Tillman. Ruth Jennings. Every photo. Every record. The same woman. A different wig. Different glasses. But the same cold smile. I printed everything. I went to the police again. Showed them the pattern. The detective, Olson, told me he'd escalate it. He seemed to finally take it seriously. Until I went back a week later and found out he was transferred. Just like that. I asked who was handling the case now. Nobody could give me a straight answer. Something was off. Then I got an email. No sender name. Just a burner Gmail. Subject, stay away. It had one line: "Some stains can't be washed out. Let it go." Attached was a photo of me at the grocery store the day before. I was holding Ellie's hand. They were watching me. Whoever helped Carol, if she was doing this alone, wasn't just some crazed loner. She had help. People. Or worse, a group. I started rereading the notebook police recovered from the cabin. They didn't release it, but I had taken pictures with my phone before they sealed the scene. Page after page of punishment rules. But then I noticed something I missed the first time. Some entries were in different handwriting. Smaller, tighter script. Like notes from someone else. One said, "Unit 3 is no longer safe. Relocate to Ridgeview site. Burn all traces. Do not leave photos again." Unit 3? Ridgeview? I started mapping it out. Her past locations. Churches with fires. Kids with unexplained vanishings that never made national news. 4 different states. Always small towns. Always off-grid. Always involving churches that later accidentally burned. She wasn't just a sick woman. She was part of something bigger. Then last week, I woke up and found a white envelope under my windshield wiper. Inside was a note: "You found us. Keep going and your daughter gets the fire this time, not the soap." No signature. But the paper smelled faintly like incense. I bought a gun the next day. And I made a decision. If they wanted me to stop looking, that meant I was getting close. So I pushed harder. That's when I found them. It started with an address. Hidden in the metadata of one of the notebook photos was a geotag, probably by accident. Whoever wrote those extra notes must have taken a picture of the page and sent it to Carol before she left the cabin. The coordinates pointed to a remote spot in West Virginia, just outside a town called Spencer. Deep in the hills. I left Ellie with my cousin in Tennessee. She was the only one I trusted. I told her just enough. There's someone still out there who wants to hurt us. I need to finish this. She didn't ask questions. She saw the way I looked. Like I had already buried the fear. I packed my car with food, gas, phone chargers, a camera, and the Glock I'd bought under the table. No serial number. The property in Spencer wasn't on Google Maps. I found it only through an old real estate listing someone forgot to take down. A 2-story stone building tucked into the woods. It used to be a church school, the kind that shut down in the 90s when funding dried up. It had been bought 5 years ago under a private trust. Guess whose name was tied to the deed? Ruth Jennings. One of Carol's old aliases. I got there just after midnight. The moon was out, but the trees covered most of it. I parked half a mile down the road and hiked the rest on foot. The building looked empty. No lights. Windows dark. But I saw smoke rising from the back chimney. Someone was home. I circled around and found a basement window cracked open. I slid in. The place smelled like damp wood and old books. I crept through the basement, up a flight of stairs, and peeked into the main chapel hall. That's where I saw them. Not just Carol. 3 others. 2 women, 1 man. They stood in front of a girl, maybe 9, trembling in a white dress. Her hands were tied in front of her. Carol held a bowl of water in one hand and that damn bar of soap in the other. She was muttering words from that same notebook. I could hear her voice shaking. Then I saw the man hand her a lighter. That's when I acted. I came out from behind the column and fired into the ceiling. Everyone froze. Let her go. Carol turned slowly, like she wasn't surprised at all. "You came," she said. "I knew you would. You're part of this now." I stepped closer. "Let her go or I swear to God." "You already swore," she interrupted. "When you reported me. When you chose the world's lies over the truth. Your daughter needed correction. And you ruined that. You kidnapped her. You tortured her. She was happy here. Clean. I snapped. I shot the man in the leg. He dropped screaming. One of the women tried to run. I pistol-whipped her before she made it to the door. The last one froze and dropped to the floor. Carol didn't move. You think this ends with me? She said. You think they won't come looking for me now? You've made yourself a target. I raised the gun. I'm counting on it. Then I shot her in the chest. She dropped fast. No big final speech. No scream. Just silence. I grabbed the girl and ran. Left the others there, tied them up with cords I found in a supply closet. Called the cops once I was 2 towns away. Gave them the address and names. Told them to bring body bags. They raided the place. Found files. Pictures. A wall of names. There were dozens of kids in those notes. Most were alive. Some were never found. Turns out, Carol had been part of a cult. A splinter group from some extreme purity sect. They didn't just believe in punishment. They believed in erasing the sin from children by any means. Soap. Fire. Cold. Silence. The school in Spencer was their main hideout. A few other buildings were found in Missouri, Arkansas, and Ohio. FBI got involved after that. It became a national case. They traced everything back to Carol. She was the leader. The woman behind the curtain for over 15 years. The ones who helped her? They're all in prison now. And the cops who failed to act when I reported her? Turns out Detective Olson wasn't transferred. He was paid off. His cousin? One of the women I tied up at the church. He's behind bars too. And every officer who ignored those early warnings? Internal Affairs swept the whole damn department. They say I exposed something bigger than any of them ever expected. But I don't care about that. I just care that Ellie is safe. It took months of therapy. Nightmares. Panic attacks. Sometimes she still jumps when the doorbell rings. But she laughs now. She plays with other kids. She's healing. As for me? I sleep with the lights on. The gun is never far. But I don't regret what I did. I found her. I saved her. And I made sure the people who tried to take her will never see the outside of a cell again. Some people say revenge is dirty. I say it's survival. Because when the system fails you, you either fight back. Or you lose everything. And I wasn't about to lose my daughter. Not to a woman who thought pain was holy. Not to a cult that hid behind hymns and soap. Not to anyone. Never again.